All right, we're going to do this. Hi. This thing is looking like a massive blowout. We have new polling this morning that's absolutely incredible. And this is before the post-convention bounce. Next week, the heavy machinery comes out. Joe Biden's valedictory, we're going to hear that, plus the Obamas and the Clintons. And don't forget this juggernaut that is Tim Walz. And, of course, Vice President Harris's acceptance speech. The ratings for this convention next week are going to be huge, and that's going to drive Donald Trump crazier than he already is. Unless something historic happens, a terrorist attack, an economic collapse between now and Election Day, the only question is how big a landslide is this going to be? The pre-post-convention bounce numbers are staggering. These are the pre-post-convention bounce numbers. They're staggering. But President Harris, and get used to saying that, President Harris is facing a huge problem come 2025, the United States Senate. On today's show, I'm going to tell you where things stand when it comes to keeping control of the Senate. Right now, it's not looking good. If the election were held today, Harris would win big. She would enter the Oval Office with a mandate. Hakeem Jeffries would become our next speaker with the House flipping blue. I'll go over all those numbers later. It's looking great for the House and the White House. But, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, if this election were held today, control of the Senate would flip over to the Republicans. Yes, Vice President Harris will destroy Donald Trump on Election Day. He's going to be done. And in many ways, that might be good enough. But right now, come 2025, we're looking at divided government. If you're a Democrat, you need to work much harder. It's not good enough to get Harris elected president. You have to deliver victories in the House and the Senate. And the Senate, as of this morning, is not looking good. As you'll see on today's program, control of the Senate all comes down to one race, Montana. Can Democratic Senator Jon Tester of Montana keep his seat? If the election were held today, the answer is no. If the election were held today, Harris would win by a landslide. She'd have a democratically controlled House, but the Senate would flip Republican, and a Republican-controlled Senate would make her life very difficult, especially when it comes to lining the courts with the progressives she plans to nominate. If Republicans control the Senate, that means Republicans can continue to shape our courts, and she won't be able to pass the budgets we want her to pass. That's where things stand this morning. We're looking at a huge win for Harris, but unless Democrats pick up their game, she faces divided government. Over the weekend, Donald Trump held one rally. It was in Montana. I keep saying, pay attention to where Trump goes. Republicans know control of the Senate comes down to Montana. That's why he went there last weekend. And given how poorly Trump is doing around the rest of the country, that's probably the last time Trump steps foot in Montana. Watch this electoral map. Trump is on defense now, plugging holes, which means Republicans will probably end up lacking the resources, maybe, to flip Montana, which is where the race for the Senate is in Montana. Between now and November, Trump is never going back to Montana. He checked that box last weekend. Now he has to chase Harris in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, probably Florida. I'll go all over this on today's show, plus my nephew Leonard joins us once again. This is the mop-up for August 15th, 2024. I'm David Feldman in New York. Thank you for finding me. And by the way, the fact that we're worrying about the Senate before Labor Day should give you an idea of how much peril Donald Trump is in this morning. Between now and Election Day, I'm hoping to produce more episodes that are much shorter. I'm not sure I can do this, but I'm going to try. If you would like a transcript of today's episode, please go to shopdavidfeldmanshow.com. The transcripts are free, and that's because of my listeners who continue to buy worthless crap over at shopdavidfeldman.com, like the Still a Democrat t-shirt or coffee mug, my favorite, the Made in Los Estados Unidos coffee mug. This is a new one. It's Albert Einstein on a coffee mug, and he's saying, "I'm surrounded by idiots." I like that because that's like middle of the road. That's something like your mother could buy, bring to the office and not offend anybody. And then there's my biggest seller, the chef's apron, emblazoned with the words, "I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea." I try to do as smart a show as I possibly can, and this is how my audience thanks me. My number one seller is the chef's apron with the words, "I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea." God, I hate my life. Anyway, Joe Biden's on track to become the most successful president in modern American history. On Wednesday, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the Consumer Price Index for July hit 2.9%. That's the lowest inflation in almost 3 years. Gas prices continue to decline, which makes it harder for Trump to complain about pain at the pump. He's still lying and saying gas prices are going up, but they're not. The biggest problem when it comes to inflation continues to be rent, which rose 0.4% in July. It's not good. Why is rent still going up? Well, we have a massive housing shortage, and people who own homes, people whose nest eggs are their homes, don't want more houses getting built because supply and demand dictates housing costs. Homes are expensive. Renting is expensive. We have way too many homeless because there's more demand than there is supply. I guess what I'm saying is if your nest egg is your home, you should try working for a living and push our government to build more affordable housing. That means President Harris is going to have to repeal the Faircloth Amendment. Passed in 1999, the Faircloth Amendment freezes the number of public housing units the Department of Housing and Urban Development can finance. They've capped it. There's literally, because of the Faircloth Amendment, there's literally a ban on the federal government financing more public housing. So this election is not about homelessness. It's not about the eviction crisis. It should be, but there's no time. But when President Harris gets to the Oval Office, one of the first orders of business must be repealing the Faircloth Amendment and pumping billions of dollars into brand new public housing. We're not going to do that if Republicans control the Senate. So, if you have any money and you can take a week off from work, if you have some vacation time, consider contacting the Democratic Party and ask how you can spend a week in Montana volunteering for John Testor. I can't think of a better vacation, knocking on doors in Montana. Do it. Go knock on doors in Montana. Be the greatest vacation you had. Do it in October. Well, the good news this morning, inflation overall is coming down with prices seemingly under control. That means Jerome Powell, who is chairman of the Federal Reserve, he is now expected to lower interest rates, which means the cost of servicing your credit card debt should come down a bit. Bloomberg reports this morning that if the next tranche of numbers in September shows that inflation is continuing to decline, and if unemployment continues to tick up slightly as it is, then we should expect the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates sometime in September. That will probably juice the stock market, creating a cushion for October. And October is always the most dangerous time of the year for the stock market. What Harris doesn't want is the stock market to crash in October. The economy often crashes in October. So if Jerome Powell over at the Fed lowers interest rates in September, we could be looking at record highs for the S&P 500. By the way, we're just getting corporate earnings for the second quarter of 2024. And what we're seeing for the first time in years is an economy that is no longer being led by a handful of companies. This recovery since the financial crisis, for years, this economy has been primarily fueled by about 7 companies racking up the lion's share of earnings. Companies like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Apple, most recently NVIDIA with AI. What we saw for the first time in years this last quarter is deeper and broader earnings growth for most of corporate America. The wealth is finally getting spread around to the rest of corporate America. I should mention that the sharpest increase in prices last month came from video game subscriptions. And why is that? Well, the Biden administration tried to block Microsoft's $70 billion purchase of Activision. Activision is the big video game maker, and Microsoft makes Xbox. They were already in the video game business, and then they spent $70 billion to buy Activision. The European Union tried to block this. Didn't happen. And the Ninth Circuit Court last year allowed the merger to go through, despite Biden's FTC fighting it. And the FTC is still fighting this merger. Last week, Biden's FTC filed a complaint with the Ninth Circuit Court over Microsoft's price increase for video game subscriptions. Now, I don't know if the Harris administration's FTC will try to unravel the Microsoft Activision deal. They should. They should. But this is what Joe Biden has been talking about when he complains of greedflation. One of the reasons inflation has spiked is companies have bought up their competition, and it gives them pricing power because there's no competition. The Biden administration has been trying to block several mergers. Some they have successfully. There's a supermarket chain that wanted to merge, and the Biden administration is blocking it because food prices go up when supermarkets are controlled by a handful of corporations. So the Fed is desperately trying to slow this economy down, and Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, seems to think he's succeeding. Powell's next concern, beginning in late September, should be unemployment. That's what they're saying. That's what he's saying. They're going to start worrying about unemployment, which is now ticking past 4%. So, what could cause a market crash in October? And that changes the electoral map. If the market crashes in October, we're looking at a different electoral map. Well, fear of a recession. We saw that the market plunged, a week ago because there was fear of a recession here in America, which is why Powell is about to lower interest rates. By lowering interest rates, he's making money cheap enough to jumpstart the economy. He's fine-tuning things, but we do have a potential looming crisis with commercial real estate. People like Jared Kushner and the Trumps, anyone who invests in commercial real estate, when they purchase office buildings, they take out loans. Usually they're like 10-year notes, and they only have to pay back the interest for 10 years. These are, like I said, these are usually 10-year notes, and then after 10 years, the principal finally comes due. And real estate people often pay off the note when it comes due by flipping the building. That's how commercial real estate works in America. You borrow $300 million to buy a $300 million office building. For 10 years, you service the interest with the cash flow that comes for the rent. Then in 10 years, when you have to pay off the principal, that's the $300 million you borrowed, you flip the building. And the only way you can do that is presupposing that in 10 years, that $300 million office building you purchased is worth more than $300 million. But because people have been working from home since COVID, commercial real estate has plummeted. What we have right now are real estate investors holding office buildings that are underwater. And I don't mean because of climate change. I mean they owe more than the building is worth. In other words, if they sell the building, it won't cover the mortgage. For all we know, this could be similar to the financial crisis of 2008. I doubt it, but who knows? Dodd-Frank added some guardrails, but this is still a boom and bust economy. And if you're incredibly rich, if you're sitting on a lot of cash, you want a bust right now. You don't want more boom. You want a bust. Warren Buffett, for example, St. Warren, he has more cash right now than he knows what to do with. So it's in the best interests of the richest of the richest of the richest 1%, people who have more cash than they know what to do with. It is in their best interest for this economy to come crashing down right now because they have more cash than they know what to do with, and they can buy up even more of the country. So if panic sets in during, say, October, we could see a global collapse. That would hurt Harris. We could see a commercial real estate related global collapse in October, and that will hurt Harris. Short of that, and who knows, right? But I don't think it's going to happen. Short of that, or a terrorist attack, we're looking at a rising stock market, low inflation, and relative low unemployment taking us into Election Day. Again, who knows? If the economy collapses in October, it's a brand new day, brand new electoral map, and it's not a good one for the Democrats. All that being said, there is a game U.S. presidents play to get reelected. And Harris, for all intents and purposes, is running for reelection. She is the face now of the Biden administration. The game is knock unemployment down to 4%, inflation down to 2%. That's what an A+ on a presidential report card looks like. Now, no president ever gets there, but they often come close. And the Biden-Harris team right now has come the closest in modern American history to hitting that sweet spot. There's never been an economy like this. Now, look, there's plenty wrong with our economy, especially in the ways we measure it. But politically speaking, I'm not talking about morality here. I'm talking about politics just by going by the rules of the game. Biden and Harris won when it comes to the economy. They've beaten every modern American presidency. Again, commercial real estate could destroy everything in October, or a terrorist attack. Short of those two things, we are looking at a blowout election, a massive blowout for Harris. Trump is desperately trying to make this race about inflation. He can't unless he lies, which he does. Inflation is under control. The only thing he can hope for right now is a recession, and that's not likely. He's trying to make it about crime. He can't. He has to lie. Axios issued a new report this week showing a sharp decline this year in violent crime, which has been coming down since it first peaked during the final year of Trump's presidency. Trump cannot run on crime. It peaked when he was president. Violent crime peaked in 2020 when he was president. But now violent crime has been coming down since Biden took office. It's down 6% this year in nearly 70 of America's largest cities, which are all blue, right? Miami and Washington, D.C. saw a 26% decrease in violent crime this year. Austin, Texas, violent crime is down 28%. New Orleans, violent crime is down 26%. Homicides in 70 of our country's largest cities down 17% this year. Boston's homicide rate is down nearly 80%. Philadelphia, got to win Pennsylvania. Philadelphia's homicide rate is down 42%. Trump's trying to make it about the border. He can't. He can't run on inflation, he can't run on crime, and he can't run on the border because the number of migrants trying to come into this country is down 50% from last year. There's been an 85% drop in migrants coming into Texas this year, and that's a problem for their worthless idiot governor, Greg Abbott, who promised, you might remember, during the Republican convention last month, that he was going to keep shipping migrants to blue cities. But NBC reports this morning that Texas has a shortage of migrants to put on buses. NBC says Abbott hasn't been able to bus migrants to Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco since at least January. Abbott desperately wants to ship migrants to blue cities, but he can't find any. All Trump can do, all the Republicans can do, is lie. Lie about the migrants, lie about crime, lie about inflation. Now he's saying we're on the brink of World War III, that the stock market is about to collapse, our cities are no longer safe, and the border is flooded with psychopaths. Now, maybe the media will do its job and correct Donald Trump. I doubt it. But unlike Joe Biden, Vice President Harris can and will, and so will her running mate. So, as I've been telling you, pay attention to where Donald Trump is campaigning. Yesterday, he was in North Carolina. That's unbelievable. Of all the places he needs to be, what's he doing in North Carolina? I'll go over some new polls later, but the headline is, if the election were held today, Harris would win North Carolina. This is huge. North Carolina has 16 electoral votes. The map has changed. If this were the old map, with Biden hanging on to just the blue wall, Trump right now would be in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin pounding away at him. But it's a completely new day. Now Trump is playing defense in North Carolina, and he's got J.D. Vance on offense in Michigan. Now, that should be flipped. If Trump were ahead, that would be flipped. If this were the old map, Vance would be in North Carolina, right? Nothing to lose down there, send Vance. And Trump would be hammering away at the blue wall in Michigan. But they flipped it. Trump in North Carolina yesterday is an act of desperation. Trump spoke in Asheville, North Carolina, to a much smaller crowd than he spoke to there back in 2016. His campaign booked the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium, which only holds 2,431 seats. And the Asheville Citizen-Times points out that's 1/4 the size of the arena he spoke to back in 2016. This is bad. You might remember on the last show, I pointed out that the Democratic governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, announced that he's forgiving 10 years of medical debt for everyone in the state of North Carolina. He's doing it through Medicaid and Obamacare. This is precisely why Trump in North Carolina yesterday backtracked on Obamacare and said, I'm not going to repeal it. According to the New York Times, when Trump told the crowd in North Carolina, Obamacare stinks, the audience fell silent. They're about to get their medical debt forgiven because of Medicaid. Not good for Donald Trump. So he pivoted, he panicked, and said, well, unless I can find something better than Obamacare, we're going to keep it. He's no longer singing his greatest hits. Getting rid of Obamacare for the past 8 years was his free bird. Republicans held at least 100 votes to repeal Obamacare in both the House and Senate. Most of those votes took place while Trump was president. Trump ran for office promising to get rid of Obamacare, but he never once offered an alternative because Republicans have no alternatives to anything. They can only destroy. Trump is very good at stating problems. He offers zero solutions. He's offering zero solutions, except we're seeing one big policy move this cycle. Trump is promising no taxes on tips. He thinks that's what's going to help him win in Nevada. He's very upset with Vice President Harris because she told a crowd in Las Vegas last week that she agrees with Donald Trump. She said, yeah, we should not be taxing tips. So Trump turned on her for agreeing with him. That's my idea. Not taxing tips, mine. You can't have it. This is why he killed the border bill. He doesn't care about the border or whether people who wait on tables are taxed on tips. He only cares if it helps him. In the past 48 hours, we've learned that RFK Jr. will not be allowed on the New York state ballot. He will be allowed to stay on the North Carolina ballot, but he's not polling well there. We are also now getting reports this morning that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. may drop out of the race. The Washington Post says Kennedy has put out feelers for a meeting with Vice President Harris where he will propose endorsing her in exchange for a cabinet-level position in her administration, like Secretary of batshit crazy. Kennedy made a similar offer to Trump last month. Harris is probably not going to meet with him. J.D. Vance's days as Trump's running mate may be numbered. There are reports that Trump now admits picking J.D. Vance was a disaster. Well, of course Vance is a disaster because it was Don Jr.'s idea. Everyone was saying Rubio, but the genius Don Jr., along with Tucker Carlson, said, no, you got to pick J.D. Vance. Campaigning in Michigan yesterday, J.D. Vance lied about the price of gasoline, complained that it's going up. It's not. It's coming down. And then J.D. Vance once again proved he's as prodigious a liar as Donald Trump when he claimed, thanks to Harris, the average price of a new car is now $50,000. Well, the price of a new car is actually $12,000. Way to stay in touch with the common man, Captain Hillbilly Elegy. Last week, AIPAC defeated St. Louis Congresswoman Cori Bush, making her the second member of the squad to be defeated by AIPAC this year. But good news coming out of Minnesota's 5th Congressional District Tuesday night. House Democrat Ilhan Omar held on to the party's nomination, defeating Minneapolis City Council member Don Samuels by 13 percentage points. That's a vast improvement over their matchup 2 years ago, when Omar only defeated him by 2 percentage points. Omar, along with Rashida Tlaib, are the first two Muslim women ever to serve in Congress. I always advise listeners of my show, if you have any money, you first donate to Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, the rest of the squad. If you have any money left over, then donate to the Harris campaign. But first give to the squad, especially Ilhan Omar. Congresswoman Omar's daughter attends Columbia University, where she was suspended and left homeless after participating in last spring's protest in support of Palestinians. Last night, Nimat Shafiq became the third Ivy League president to resign amid complaints about how she handled the protests against Israel this year. All three Ivy League presidents who resigned, by the way, happen to be women. Interesting. It's worth noting that when elected, President Harris and her running mate will become the first non-Ivy League administration since the Carter administration. Let's hope her Supreme Court picks don't come from Harvard, Yale, or Stanford. This will never be a free country until we destroy the stranglehold these elite universities have on our politics. It's not impressive to go to Harvard, Yale, Stanford, or any of these elite universities. It's desperation. It's a character flaw. We have new battleground state polling coming to us from the Cook Political Report. This is an A-plus poll. Keep in mind, the convention is next week, after which Harris is expected to get a huge bump. These are spectacular numbers that are throwing Trump completely off his game and sparking behavior that's becoming increasingly unhinged. Now, to refresh your memory, the key battleground states are Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. According to the new Cook Report poll, Harris, are you sitting? Harris is now leading Trump in 5 of those 7 key battleground states. She and Trump are in a statistical dead heat in Georgia, which is a significant improvement over May of this year, when Trump was leading Biden in Georgia by 4 percentage points. Now it's a dead heat. Trump is only beating Harris in Nevada, and he's leading her by 5 points. That's down from the 8 points Trump was beating Biden in Nevada back in May. But Nevada is a very tough state to poll. In fact, one of the ways you measure Nevada, one of the ways you weight it, is by judging how the vote is going in other swing states. Nevada is always tight, and it's won on the ground, knocking on doors. Jackie Rosen, the Democratic senator, is running for re-election there, and her seat looks safe. So if Trump is leading by 5 points in Nevada, those numbers don't mean anything to me. More importantly, let's talk about the blue wall, where Harris is leading. Are you sitting? She's leading in Pennsylvania, according to the Cook Political Report, by 5. See, we're on the last show, I went over other polls showing her winning in Pennsylvania. up by 5, according to the Cook Political Report. And we also have a new Quinnipiac survey this morning showing Harris beating Trump by 3 points in Pennsylvania. So this is a brand new map, and Pennsylvania is no longer the problem child of the blue wall. This presidential election does come down to Pennsylvania. And even before the post-convention bounce in late August, we're right now seeing spectacular numbers for Harris in Pennsylvania. Let me get back to the Cook Political Report. Wisconsin, she's beating Trump there by 5. And in Michigan, she's beating him by 2. What we want to see are even bigger numbers in those 3 states right after the convention. But as I keep saying, come Labor Day, when the numbers settle back down, if she's polling like this in Pennsylvania, like this in Wisconsin, like this in Michigan, then this is going to be an historic wave election. The big headline coming out of this poll: Harris is now beating Trump by 2 percentage points in North Carolina. Let me repeat, according to the Cook Political Report, Harris is now beating Donald Trump in North Carolina by 2 percentage points. This is the very first poll we've seen all year where Trump is losing in North Carolina. Now, I get a lot of things wrong on this show, but go back and listen to my last episode where I said, even though the latest polling, because we didn't have this Cook Political Report poll in North Carolina on the last show, I said, even though the latest polling in North Carolina shows Trump leading slightly in North Carolina, I said if the election were held today, Harris would win North Carolina. And now, new polling this morning shows Harris leading by 2 points in North Carolina. So this is great. This is amazing. Okay. Am I lost here? I want to get to the map. North Carolina. Let me talk a little bit about North Carolina. Very, very important. You might want to get out your pad and pencil and write these numbers down. North Carolina has 16 electoral votes. Okay? Go up to the blue wall now. Wisconsin has 10. Michigan has 15. Pennsylvania has 19. Again, North Carolina has 16. This is why Pennsylvania is so important, okay? Worst case scenario. Let's go to the worst case scenario map. If this will work today, what's going on? Is this my worst case? I'm getting ahead of myself here. Sorry. What's going on here? What do we have here? Okay, this is the worst case scenario map. Take a look at it. This is so important, and this will show you why North Carolina or Georgia is going to change everything. Remember, worst case scenario, she just wins the blue wall, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. That gives her 270, right on the nose. You need 270. Trump ends up with 268. I'll keep coming back to this map until Election Day. That is your blue wall right there, okay? That's your blue wall. Okay. But look, and this is really important, okay? The fact that Donald Trump was in North Carolina yesterday tells us everything. He knows he's losing North Carolina. So look at this. Harris can swap out Wisconsin for North Carolina, right? I'm turning Wisconsin red, but I'm turning North Carolina blue. If she wins Michigan and Pennsylvania, the blue wall, and adds North Carolina, okay, still loses Georgia, she still loses Arizona, she still loses Nevada, She gets 276. Trump ends up with 262. North Carolina is changing the map. This is incredible. The same goes with, I didn't build a map if she loses Michigan, but it's the same thing. If she can lose Wisconsin, but if she wins Michigan, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, that gets her 276. And I just love this. Now, look, she can also swap out Michigan for North Carolina, and she gets 271. She can lose. She can win Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. She can lose Michigan, but if she wins North Carolina, that gets her to 271. And she doesn't need to win Arizona or Nevada or Georgia. I mean, look at that. That's pretty incredible. She can lose Michigan, but if she wins North Carolina, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, she gets to 271. That means she can lose Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. What she cannot do, okay, what she cannot do is swap out Pennsylvania from the blue wall and replace it with North Carolina. If she wins Michigan and Wisconsin and North Carolina, but not Pennsylvania, Trump gets 271 and he's the new president. Georgia and North Carolina have the same exact number of electoral votes. So if she doesn't win Pennsylvania, but she wins Michigan and Wisconsin, this is how it works. She then needs to either win North Carolina or Georgia. Georgia and North Carolina have the same number of electoral votes, 16. She needs to win North Carolina or Georgia if she loses Pennsylvania, plus Arizona or Nevada. Okay? I know I'm throwing a lot at you. Let me say this as clearly as possible because I want you to understand the dynamics of this race. I mean, it's really exciting to see Donald Trump in North Carolina. It's the polls. It's fascinating. Okay. If Harris wins the blue wall, then she can lose North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, 270. But if she loses Pennsylvania, then she needs either Georgia or North Carolina, plus either Arizona or Nevada. That's why I cannot stress this enough. This election right now will be won in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania solves all her problems. Right now, she could lose Pennsylvania, and then her most likely road to 270 is cobbling together North Carolina and Arizona. Nevada is probably in play. I have more faith in Arizona. If she cannot win Pennsylvania, then she needs North Carolina or Georgia plus Arizona. Mark my words, Trump will be spending a lot of time in Arizona. He has so many holes to plug right now. This was not the race he was planning on last month, and he's running a sclerotic campaign. Now, there's talk that he's going to fire the campaign manager, Chris LaCivita. Somebody told me he'll be gone by Monday as an act of desperation. This is a sinking ship, and nobody knows how to plug these holes. He only knows how to throw people overboard, which is what he did in 2016. He kept replacing campaign managers. I think because he's a showman, he's going to try to capture the news cycle next week by throwing J.D. Vance to the curb. Maybe. I don't think it helps, because unless he picks Rubio, and his ego can't handle that. I mean, who does he have? Haley? Maybe Nikki Haley. I don't think he can handle that. So, there are rumors that J.D. Vance's days are numbered. On the last show, I said we're looking at Hakeem Jeffries as the next Speaker of the House. Even if this is not a wave election, which it's going to be, but even if it's not a wave election, Democrats are probably going to win back the House. Holding on to the Senate is looking like a massive problem for Democrats. This morning, it's looking like a massive problem. Even if we see a massive, once-in-a-generation wave election, the Senate still remains tough. Let's go over the math in the Senate. This isn't really being covered in the mainstream media. The numbers aren't being covered, so I thought I would go over this with you. It's a little dry. You might want to get a pad and pencil, but it will help you understand what's at stake here for President Harris, because you do not want her coming into office without the House and the Senate. Okay, let's go over the math. The important thing to remember is the Vice President of the United States casts the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. When you're counting votes, sometimes you have to think of the Vice President as the 101st senator, right? There are 100 senators. Sometimes, when it's a tie, the Vice President is it breaks the tie. Okay, write this down because it's dry, but it's important. The Democrats right now control the Senate. Here's why. Republicans have 49 Senate seats. Democrats have 47. So why do Democrats control the Senate if there are two more Republicans than there are Democrats? Because there are 4 independent senators right now who caucus with the Democrats. Technically, we always forget this, Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat, but he caucuses with them. Angus King of Maine runs as an independent, but then he caucuses with the Democrats. So, with Bernie and Angus King, that brings it to 49 for the Republicans and 49 for the Democrats. Joe Manchin of West Virginia was a Democrat up until this year when he announced he wasn't running for re-election. He quit the Democratic Party and decided to become an independent who caucuses with the Democrats. That gives the Dems 50. And Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona was elected as a Democrat, but she became an independent who caucuses with the Democrats, giving the Democrats 51 votes in the Senate to the Republicans' 49. That gets you to 100 senators, right? We have 100 senators. Washington, D.C. should be a state. There should be 102 senators, but that's for another show. Now remember, the vice president breaks ties. Democrats, as of today, are going to win control of the House. And if they can keep the Senate, President Harris will get a lot done, especially when it comes to passing budgets. You can't filibuster the budget. It's a straight thumbs up or thumbs down in the Senate. Same goes with judges. The Senate, and only the Senate, approves judges. The House of Representatives has nothing to do with judges. And you can no longer filibuster a Supreme Court nominee or any nominee for the lower courts. It's a strict thumbs up or thumbs down. Again, the House doesn't pick the Senate. The House doesn't pick our judges. The Senate does, which means right now, with just a 1-vote majority, Democrats can shape the courts. The Democrats have to keep the Senate in 2025. They have to. The courts are at stake. It's going to be tough. So what are we looking at for control of the Senate in 2025? As of this morning, it's not good. Right now, as I said, it's 51-49, plus the vice president breaks the tie. Let's assume Harris wins. So Walsh becomes the 101st senator. Okay. All right. Harris wins. It's 51-59. 51-49. That's where it stands right now. Joe Manchin isn't returning. So his West Virginia seat is going to flip red. That's received wisdom. Right there, if nothing else changes, we have a tie in the Senate. That's a given. So you're going to need the vice president to step in. If nothing else changes, Harris will be coming in with a tie. But that means the Democrats control the Senate. Bob Casey, Senator Bob Casey in Pennsylvania, is running for re-election. As of now, he's going to win big in Pennsylvania. He's up by, the real clear averages, I think, show him up by 6. So he's going to win in Pennsylvania. Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin is running for re-election. It's safe to assume she's going to come back. We're not going to lose that seat. Slotkin in, what am I doing here? There we go. Slotkin in Michigan is running for Democratic Senator Debbie Stabinov's seat. I'm going to call that one safe for Slotkin. I think she's going to win. That's a safe seat. Amy Klobuchar is safe in Minnesota. Gillibrand is safe in New York. Also, Brooks is going to keep Maryland for the Democrats. Tim Kaine is safe in Virginia. Adam Schiff is going to win by a landslide in California, keeping Dianne Feinstein's seat blue. Okay, Arizona's Kyrsten Sinema's seat is up for grabs. She was a Democrat. Now she just caucuses with them. She's not running again, thank God. Remember, she caucuses with the Democrats. Arizona is a swing state. House Democrat Ruben Gallego is running against the odious Kari Lake, the election denier. Gallego is leading in all the polls. There's not a single poll showing him losing to Kari Lake. Some polls have him beating her by a landslide. So I'm going to assume the Arizona Senate seat stays blue. Jackie Rosen in Nevada is running for re-election. She's a Democrat. Nevada is a swing state. She's running against Sam Brown. He's never held elective office. All the polls show her beating Brown consistently. So I'm going to say that seat looks safe, especially in a wave election, the kind we're looking at, okay? Remember, we're losing Manchin in West Virginia. So if the Democrats don't lose any more seats, that makes it tied in the Senate 50-50, which means Democrats will control the Senate because of Walsh being vice president. But there are 2 Democratic Senate seats that could be tricky. Just 2. Ohio and Montana. As of this morning, and remember, things change, but as of this morning, there are just 2 Senate races you need to keep an eye on. Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown in Ohio, his race for re-election, and Democratic Senator John Tester's re-election race in Montana. They both were elected to the Senate back in, I'm going to say 2006. I may be wrong, but I think both of them came to the Senate in 2006. If either one of them loses, then it's 51-49. Republicans gain control of the Senate. This is, as of today, the Senate is not looking good. As of this morning, control of the Senate comes down to just Montana and Ohio. If the Dems keep Montana and Ohio, then we have a tie in the Senate because Harris is going to win. Dems keep the Senate. The Democrats cannot lose Ohio and they cannot lose Montana. They have to win both. Okay. I don't think I'm going out on a limb here when I say Sherrod Brown, Democratic senator from Ohio, is going to win. He's going to keep his seat in Ohio. I've been following these polls all year. Every single poll shows Sherrod Brown consistently defeating Bernie Moreno, a MAGA Republican who's never held elective office. He owns a car dealership. I'm going to even suggest that if Harris wins Ohio, it will be primarily because of Sherrod Brown. He's very popular. And since we're looking at a massive wave election, I'm going to say Sherrod Brown's seat is now safe in Ohio. Whether Harris wins Ohio is a different story, but Brown's seat, given the current political climate, safe, which means it all comes down to Montana. Control of the Senate comes down to Montana. Democrat Jon Tester is running for re-election. It is up to Jon Tester. If he wins, the Democrats keep control of the Senate. If he loses, the Republicans control the Senate. And that will make things difficult for President Harris. So pay attention to Montana. The presidential election as of today will be won or lost in Pennsylvania, but the Senate will be won or lost in Montana, at least as of this morning. There is a distinct possibility we're going to wake up after Election Day with Donald Trump permanently deleted, forgotten. But we also might find President Harris facing divided government because Republicans won control of the Senate. That means it's going to be tough for her to get the right judges on the courts. She's going to have to work with Senate Republicans to line the courts, and it won't be good. Think back to 2016 when Scalia died and President Obama nominated Merrick Garland, but Mitch McConnell was the leader of the Senate. Republicans controlled the Senate, and Mitch McConnell, we all remember this, wouldn't allow the Garland nomination to get voted on, and that's how we ended up with Neil Gorsuch sitting on the court. Trump became president and nominated Gorsuch when he became president. You might remember Gorsuch committed perjury when he testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee that Roe is settled law. So control of the Senate is incredibly important because whoever controls the Senate also controls our courts. Control of the Senate literally determines control of the third branch of our government, the judicial branch, which, as we all know, has become way too powerful and way too Republican. I've got bad news. The latest polling doesn't look good for Jon Tester. I'm sorry. Montana is a deep red state. We all know that. I cannot stress this enough. As of this morning, this is what we're looking at. Harris destroys Trump in November. It's a blowout wave election. She has a mandate. Trump is permanently removed from electoral politics. He's facing financial ruin and prison. We're also looking at the House flipping blue, but right now where things stand, we're looking at our Senate flipping red, and that means we have a wildly popular President Harris sitting in the Oval Office with a mandate stifled by Republicans clinging to a slight majority in the Senate. That's not going to be good. That means she's going to be forced to nominate, at best, centrists to the courts. That means to keep the government open, right? October 1st, we need a new budget, right? In order to keep the government open, she's going to have to agree to some spending cuts on the backs of the middle class and the poor. That's what happens with divided government. And here's the problem. Low information Democrats are going to end up blaming her simply for doing her job. We're not electing, she's not going to be a dictator. If she has a Republican Senate, she has to compromise to keep the government open, to populate the courts. And low information Democrats don't understand that, which means her approval rating will go down. She's let us down. So, if you're a Democrat, you need to get to work. This is where things stand this morning. Blowout for Harris, but divided government. And it all comes down to this guy, John Tester in Montana. Maybe Hawley will lose in Missouri, but we'd have to be looking at a massive wave for Harris. Ted Cruz losing Texas, I just don't see it, at least right now. Right now. The best hope, if Testor loses, the best hope then is Rick Scott, Republican Senator Rick Scott, the criminal, stole $1 billion from Medicare and Medicaid. The Republican senator from Florida, Rick Scott, is the best hope would be that he loses Florida and we flip that seat blue. If Montana is off the table, if Tester loses, then of all the Hail Mary plays for us to keep the Senate, right now I see Rick Scott, the most likely Republican incumbent, to go down. His numbers are not great, but he's leading. His numbers are not great, but he's looking at other numbers that are worse. He's reportedly just poured close to $1 million of his own money into this race, which means his donor base is drying up. They're seeing numbers that we don't get to see. He may not, that election in Florida for him may be to remember, abortion is on the ballot in Florida. They have a 6-week abortion ban down there. Before the debate, you might remember I was saying that Biden was beginning to look like he could put Florida in play. Then Florida slipped away from him after the debate. Florida was always going to be tough, but with Harris in a wave election, a lot, I'm not saying maybe Florida. And if she wins Florida, Tim Scott, his seat may flip. If any Senate Republican is vulnerable in November, it's Rick Scott. That being said, short of Rick Scott defeated in Florida, the Senate all comes down to Montana as of today. As of today. Again, the convention, this is exciting stuff. It really is. The fact that we're worrying about the Senate before Labor Day tells you how this thing has just completely changed since Harris became the nominee. The convention is next week. We may be looking at a different Senate race after the convention. It may be different in Missouri. And dare I say, come Labor Day, maybe Texas. I mean, I'm being realistic. I don't see Cruz losing right now. That's where the Senate stands. The Democrats need to keep Montana. But Montana is a Harris wave-proof state. mean, there can be this massive wave. Montana, too much high ground there. It won't be affected by the wave, perhaps. Trump won it by 16 percentage points. So, again, short of keeping Montana, then the Democrats in the Senate need to either flip Texas, Missouri, or Florida. Based on today's polls, that ain't going to happen. Based on today's polls, Tester is going to lose in Montana. Texas, Missouri, and Florida stay red in the Senate. So the news is terrific. It really is. But not terrific enough. There is still much work to be done. You got to win the Senate. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. And get to work. Get to work. What are you doing to help Testor in Montana? Hey, if you have money and free time, call the Democratic Party and find out how you can spend a week in Montana knocking on doors. I'm almost tempted to do this. Montana is big sky. It's beautiful. I can't think of a better time than spending a week in Montana in October knocking on doors to keep the Senate blue. Donating money, that's fine, but the ground game is knocking on doors. Take a week off, if you can. If your feet don't hurt, take a week off from work if you have some money. Montana isn't that expensive. If you have some money, take a week off from work and go to Montana in October. And let me know if you do it. Please. If somebody does that, if one of my listeners does that, I'm almost tempted to spend a week, forget the election. It'd be an amazing holiday. Amazing. If you would like a transcript of today's show, go to shopdavidfeldman.com. The transcripts are free, and that's because people buy things like the Still a Democrat coffee mug and the Los Estados Unidos coffee mug and this new one, Albert Einstein, saying I'm surrounded by idiots. That is as middle of the road, right? I could see the woman who sells me auto insurance having this on her. This should be a big seller. Albert Einstein saying I'm surrounded by idiots. That's something you buy for just, and then of course my big seller, the chef's apron with the words emblazoned, I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea. Well, as promised, Leonard, my nephew, is here, and he's going to talk to us. Hello, Leonard. Leonard, are you there?
Are we rolling?
Yes.
Is this, are we live?
Yes.
Thanks, Uncle David. Great show this morning.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, it's not my cup of tea. Then again, I'm a coffee drinker. But I gotta be honest with you, it's also not my cup of coffee. Anyway, I'm Leonard Riefenstahl, Chief Financial Officer of ShopDavidFeldman.com, coming to you from the ShopDavidFeldman.com Nerve Center. Nerve Center, my old bedroom right here in Rumson, New Jersey. On the last program, I showed you my latest design. It's a coffee mug featuring President Trump, dressed like a mobster. And alongside him are the words, the God Farter. Get it? The God Farter. Instead of the God Father, he's the God Farter because they say he farts a lot. I came up with this. It's my idea. My mother said it's too scatological, whatever scatological means. I think my mom invents words to make herself feel smarter than she actually is, because she's stupid. She's always doing Wordle, which is stupid. She says I should do Wordle, but that requires a subscription to the New York Times, which I refuse to read because I'm not stupid. The New York Times is stupid, and so is Wordle. You might remember I told you to go to shopdavidfeldman.com and buy this Godfarter mug, but you didn't listen. Don't be stupid. I need to sell these. I'm working on commission, and it's inconsiderate of you not to buy these. Pitbull is coming to the MetLife Arena in Hartford, Connecticut, and tickets are expensive. So I need you to buy these mugs. I don't want to have to hit my stupid mom up for money to go see Pitbull. That's humiliating. It's bad enough I have to borrow her car. I'm 22. I should be able to pay for my own Pitbull tickets. But you jerks aren't buying my coffee mug. How do you think that makes me feel? Don't be mean. Buy this mug. Buy my Godfather mug. Otherwise, you're being stupid and mean. I have 500 of these limited edition Godfather coffee mugs sitting in our warehouse, and I need you to go to shopdavidfeldman.com and start buying these Godfather coffee mugs. Don't be stupid. This is funny. It's not my fault if you don't get the joke. The Godfather, get it? Hey, I don't see why I should lose money just because you're stupid. This is a funny coffee mug. It's not my fault you're stupid and don't get the joke. Pick up your game. Be smart. This is smart. And it's political. You should own this because it's a status item. So go buy this. Don't be cheap. Be the opposite of cheap, like not cheap. My mother, David's sister, told me not to take this personally. She said it's the dead of summer and people aren't shopping, and that I shouldn't take it personally. But she's stupid, and she has no ambition. She thinks small. She accepts defeat, but I'm a fighter. She said make another product and try selling that one. And I said, no, this is a good idea. Why do I have to suffer because Uncle David's listeners are stupid? I believe in this product, and you have to fight for what you believe in. But my mother doesn't get that because she's not a fighter. She's a stupid doormat who humiliates me whenever I ask to borrow the car. Like she says, Leonard, don't leave me with an empty tank, she says. So I says, hey, use your head, Ma. For the first time in your life, think, okay? I'm not selling any coffee mugs, so how can I fill up the tank? What are you, stupid, I said. Seriously, what have you got between those ears? Velveeta? I said, don't be stupid. That's what I said. So, buy this coffee mug right now. Go to shopdavidfeldman.com and buy it. Don't buy the other stuff over there. Just buy this, because this one's my idea, and it's the best. Are you there? Did you go to shopdavidfeldman.com? What are you doing? Just staring at me? Don't be weird. There's something creepy about people watching me, but not buying anything. This isn't OnlyFans. I'm not going to start taking my clothes off to help feed one of your unresolved childhood traumas. I need you to buy this mug. Stop browsing. Stop staring. You're being a creep. Buy my Godfather mug. Otherwise, you're a creep. What, you're just going to stare at a 22-year-old man? Is that what gets you off? What are you doing lurking on the internet staring at a 22-year-old man for? Get out your credit card and buy this Godfather mug, you degenerate creep. Okay, I'm Leonard Riefenstahl, the Chief Financial Officer for ShopDavidFeldman.com, reminding you not to be a creep. Buy this Godfather mug, otherwise there's something seriously wrong with you. I'm not here to satisfy your kinks. Get out your credit card and buy this Godfather mug, you perverted sodomite. Now back to my Uncle David in New York City, who really needs to pick up his game. How am I supposed to sell things on a show where the host is so laconic? Don't be laconic. I hate laconic people. Be the opposite of laconic, like not laconic. You should be more like Theo Vaughn. I wish he was my uncle instead of my Uncle David. Theo Vaughn is cool, not laconic like Uncle David. Jesus Christ, why do I have to suffer? Because this show sucks, and so do the listeners. I'm so sick of stupid people.
Thank you, Leonard. I love you. That's my nephew, Leonard, master of the soft sell. He really, I think we're going to be racking up big sales over at shopdavidfeldman.com. Is anybody still here? Okay. If you enjoyed Leonard and the show, please hit the like button. That's the best way to remain in my feed. Please subscribe to my channel. Please subscribe to my newsletter. Thank you to Bob in the chat room for keeping the conversation civilized. I read all your comments, so please leave a comment and share this with your friends. That's the best way to help me. Thank you, Leonard. I love you, and I'm going to try to do more shows and shorter ones until Election Day. Thank you.